A new religious cult has been discovered in Kenya after a pastor by the name of Paul McKenzie Nthenge brainwashed nearly 40 members of his congregation into starving themselves to death so they could see Jesus. He even went as far as threatening them that if they don't die before August of 2023, they would face the wrath of God and die a very painful death eventually. His followers, made up of a fluctuating number of people, including men, women, and children, instantly began fasting. And of course, this seemed to be a religious practice. Unfortunately, it did not end well. So, it happens that he may have kept about 15 of them in a house where he could most likely monitor them to make sure that they kept to the fasting arrangement and basically to make sure that they fasted to death, because to him, that is the end goal of them fasting. Pretty much starving to death voluntarily. It was not after concerned neighbors who were living near these 15 members of this Pastor Mackenzie's church called the police that everything blew up in the news. People had noticed these members losing weight, macheting, refusing to eat. People had seen them struggling with their health. Many of them have been said to be fasting for nearly 20 days without food. And they were so dedicated. But these neighbors were so concerned that they could not even look at this anymore. It became a thing of stupidity for them, and instantly they felt, okay, it's high time we interfere, because on the norms, when you see people fasting, it's up to you to mind your business because it's their choice. They were not held under captivity. There was no gun pointing at them. If your next door neighbor was fasting and you saw him every other day losing weight, you wouldn't think to call the police on them. You would most likely worry that they needed to go to the hospital. But this case was different because people started learning that whatever these people were doing was based on a religious practice under the orders by their so-called pastor, Pastor Paul McKenzie. On the 13th of April 2023, the police were informed of what this group of religious cult members were doing to themselves, and instantly the police came swinging, and 15 of them were rescued from the house. They were all taken into their custody. An ambulance was called and they were rushed to the hospital as kind of like the first thing for them to do, the first initiative for them to do. However, the condition in which the policemen saw these so-called cult members was just awful. Many of them could not talk, some of them could not walk. They just lay nearly lifeless. And it turned out that while rescuing them, 4 of them died on the spot due to extreme starvation. But what is ironic is that Pastor McKenzie was not in the property. It's not clear who owns the property that these 15 people were at, but I would guess it's the pastor's own. But he wasn't there when the police came. He was most likely at the restaurant eating, for what it's worth. Because when you see pictures of him, he's really fat. I mean, he has a lot of weight. You could tell this man is not among the people fasting. Interesting. However, though, Pastor McKenzie turned himself in the next day, the 14th of April, and he went to the police to hand himself in, and clearly he knows he didn't do anything, or probably he had so much confidence in himself that a crime had not been committed that he pretty much presented himself to the police. And the reason why he actually did this so confidently is most likely because this isn't his first time with the police in a situation like this that has to do with brainwashing people into doing some of the most extreme religious practices, all in the name of God. Another reason could be that many people started spreading rumors that aside these 15 people that had been taken, 30 more of his congregation had died and had secretly been buried. However, this is a rumor and it had not been confirmed. The words are that these 15 people that were rescued were the last group of people, that the fasting had begun long before now, and a lot of them had been passing out and dying, and they had been buried quietly and secretly in an unknown grave, unmarked somewhere. Thinking of it, I don't doubt that there's a possibility that this might be true. If you remember when we talked about the Kanungu massacre here with Joseph Kibwetere and Credonia Werinde, which is similar to this religious case, you could remember that there were members that had been killed prior to the Kanungu fire explosion that killed nearly 800 of our members. And we all thought, oh my God, it's just 800 people that were killed in the church. Whereas this cult group had killed nearly 3,000 more of their members and had buried them secretly before this last set of people were killed. but that was for the Kanungu massacre of Uganda. So when I did hear that there's a chance that other members of Pastor Paul McKenzie may have died and had been buried secretly, I did not doubt for once. I will not be surprised if that was the case. The police just has to dig deep and we won't be shocked. Because again, this is not his first time doing something like this. In 2017, he was arrested with a group of secondary school students along with some university school students, even primary school students, little children within the age of 10 up to 20, whom he had brainwashed into dropping out of school. It's not clear what he was doing with them, but he just kept them around and told them to stop going to school. Clearly, the parents of these children would revolt, and I guess that was what may have led into the police crashing whatever he was doing with these kids. I don't doubt if there was some case of pedophilia in it, but that wasn't reported because I don't know what else he will be doing with his children, honestly. However, though it is being said that part of his religious organization, part of his religious cult, it's a criteria or it's important for members of his cult to not go to school or go to hospitals or, use modern day medicine. So that is something. And I guess that was why he was found with these secondary school students and university students and convinced them or brainwashed them into not going to school. And I guess eventually that blew up in his face because the police came and he was arrested, but nothing could be pinned on him because in the end, it's one thing for him to tell you not to go to school, it's another thing for you to not go to school. He was also arrested for not sending his own children to school. And I don't know how that was fixed. Maybe someone else in his family took charge of that responsibility because when it comes to Pastor Paul McKenzie, Nthenge, school is a taboo. And in 2019, he and his wife were arrested for incitement. I guess they tried to charge their congregation into starting a fight or causing a war or becoming nuisance, but the police went ahead of them and their church was closed down. They had to end their television channel, which they had. It was a pretty big deal. And then he, moved away from the community and went to a place where they call Shakahola, where he had a farm, a big farm, 10 acres of land. And, I guess he went into low-key hiding, but his followers were really obsessed with him. Some of them even relocated with him. Some of them followed him, and clearly these followers were the ones going after him because many times the police tried to shut him down. But what is a king without a follower? Or what is a ruler without a follower? And I guess these people who kept going after him were the ones who probably kept making him more powerful and giving him more reason to be manipulative. His recent case before this one with the 15 people caught fasting was in 2023, earlier this year, in March, where it was said that he was arrested for convincing a husband and wife to starve and then suffocate their two sons. And he was arrested and he got bail of 10,000 Kenyan shillings and he was released from prison. But the case is still in court pending. And just while I guess he was waiting to go back to court to defend himself, 15 people were caught starving in a house under his orders. The interesting thing about this recent case where these 15 people were caught trying to starve themselves to death is that after receiving medical attention, the Kenyan police have said that they are going to keep them under arrest for attempting to, unalive themselves, and is going to be stated as a crime. One particular member who was in the hospital did say that no matter what the police does, he would always keep following Pastor McKenzie. That is how serious the brainwashing is. Everyone is telling you your pastor is going to jail. People are letting you know that what you're doing is stupidity, but they have been brainwashed to the part where nothing makes sense unless it's Paul McKenzie that is saying it. That is how dangerous brainwashing is. Normally, when we do see religious cult leaders, we tend to notice that they mostly take advantage of the illiterate people. But when it comes to Pastor Paul McKenzie, it seems his own case is quite unique and different. He has been doing this since 2003, and of all the people he has convinced, brainwashed, and controlled into doing something outrageous for the movement, it turns out that a lot of these people who had fallen stupidly for him were all educated graduates and intelligent people. Clearly, this man doesn't even go for the broke ones. He goes for the intelligent ones. Those are the people he tends to manipulate. And anyone who can manipulate someone who is educated to that extent, that is another level of manipulation. He had made a lot of people quit their jobs to just become his follower and turn them into powerful men to nothing, reduce them into starving idiots who are so curious to see Jesus, because the point of everything was so that they can go and see Jesus. How really shocking, honestly. This is a very shocking thing. And I'm glad that he has been arrested, but I do feel that nothing might be pinned on him again, because in the end, these are all adults doing these things themselves. Look at it. He never directly hurt any of these people. Yes, he manipulated them, but I don't know how the law is going to hold him responsible for the longest of time, because this seems like he will be out again. And when he's out there in the world, his ability to manipulate people doesn't exactly go away. We are going to keep following this case, so stay connected, stay subscribed, stay following this page, because I would love to see where this is going for him. Would he stay in prison forever? Would he be convicted for the death of the 4 people who died of starvation under his orders? And will they eventually discover if 30 people have been buried secretly under this starvation, fasting, mayhem? We'll be watching and we'll be seeing how the story unfolds. But before you go, let me know what you think. Let me know your thoughts. And if you haven't subscribed, don't forget to click the subscribe button as well as the bell button, so that should there be any new video, you'll be the first to get notified.